Hey everybody, Jeff Schneider here. In today's video, I'm going to take you back to a groove I put together a few videos back where I just did the piano and I kind of broke down my workflow. You saw how I built chords and came up with the chord progressions. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it below and above. But today we're going to talk about how to put rhythm to a groove like that, or to a piano progression, which is what we're starting with here. So let me remind you how it goes. This is the piano groove, just the piano alone. Okay, so that's the piano part. Now, when I was coming up with a drum track for this, I had a couple of different ideas as far as what kind of beat I could put behind this piano part. Well, first of all, let me show you guys what I ended up with. This is the full produced loop with the drums and the bass and the piano all together, and then I'll go through some of the ideas that I had while I was putting this together. So here you go. This is the whole track. Okay, so there's the loop. Now, what did I do in terms of drums? Let's just isolate the drum part first so you can hear what that sounds like. All right, so there's the drums. By the way, I am using this really nice kit, this virtual kit by Easy Drummer. That I just started playing around with. So yeah, here's the jazz kit from Easy Drummer. Really nice sounding kit. I like it a lot. I mean, the nice thing about the Easy Drummer kits is they sound great right out of the box. So I'm going to play the track now without the drums that I ended up with and just play around with some ideas on the spot so I can show you some of the options that I was exploring while deciding what drums to put underneath this track. So that was kind of a hi-hat thing, which is similar to what I ended up with. I just chose to go with the ride cymbal versus. But I have this sort of swung 16th note grid happening underneath. You could also do that same grid with the hi-hat. Something like that. Now that's a little bit busier than I want this to be, so that's why I ended up just going with the an 8th note grid underneath rather than the 16th on the hi-hat. So here's another idea. Instead of doing a swung 16th note grid, here's a straight 16th note grid. Check it out. Like that. So again, here's what I ended up with. So you can hear the kick drum is doing the swung 16th note thing, and then the ride cymbal is just going straight A's, ding, ding, jing, ding, jing, and then of course snare on the backbeat. Okay, so that's the drum track. Again, I'm using Easy Drummer here, the jazz expansion. Really, really nice kit. Probably one of my favorites that they make. So for bass, I played the bass part on my bass. I just plugged it straight into my audio interface. This is what I have here. So not the most exciting bass part in the world, but you know, I'm not the most exciting bass player. So I kind of play to my strengths, what I can handle in terms of chops. But I think it works, and it works with the drums. So here's the bass and drums together. So for the most part, in terms of that bass part, I'm sticking to the roots, except for this thing. I do a little embellishment on the C minor, which is right around here. Here. So that little bass embellishment is C, G, C, D. I do that all the time, quite frankly, in terms of bass parts. It works really nice. It's like 1, 5, 1, 9. Boom, boom, booty. That's the little bass embellishment I throw in there. Everything else, I think, is just roots. Maybe a fifth in there now and again. And you guys know how the piano part goes already because I did that in the last video. So let's talk a bit about mixing. I didn't have to do too much for this because the instruments are virtual, so they sound pretty good right out of the box. I did do a few things here, especially in the mastering stage, just to get the levels up. So let's see, for drums. Oh, by the way, I've been using Slate digital plugins for the past couple of months. I got that Everything bundle. I don't know if you guys know about Slate products, but they make awesome plugins. And when you get the Everything bundle, you have access to all of the plugins. So all the equalizers, all the compressors, all the reverbs, everything. You don't have to go outside of Slate to mix anything anymore because all the plugins are there. You get everything. And it's like 15 bucks a month. So here we go. By the way, not a paid endorsement, just some great plugins. Same with the Easy Drummer, not a paid endorsement, just great drums. Okay, so here's what I have. I have the virtual mix rack, and then some compressor action here. You guys can see that working. Just a little bit of parallel compression mixed in, about like 33%. So I'm turning it off and on. This is on, off. Yeah, so it brings out the compressor brings out the sort of the tail end of the cymbal and the snare, so it makes it all connected, right? So you don't have these really staccato transients that don't connect with one another, but rather the compressor extends the sound of the drum or the cymbal, so that you get from here to the next beat, and it's almost like it's stretched out. If you think about compressors as shapes, it really helps. So without the compressor, it's kind of like a triangle where you have the start of the sound, then it kind of dwindles, right? And like any sound does. If you clap your hands, it starts really loud, and then you hear the reverberation, and then finally it gets to zero. But what a compressor does is, instead of that triangle, it kind of makes it into more of a rectangle. So that's how you get that more connected sound, especially on the drum bus. Worked really well. I think I did a little bit on the kick drum here. I just wanted to bring it out a little bit. So I ended up boosting some of the higher frequencies in the kick drum. I have a little bit of a boost around 3.5 and then around 950, just to get some of the attack to come up a bit. And then it also looks like I ducked down on with a low shelf. I don't know why I did that. I don't think it needs it. Let's see what's going on there. Right. Okay, so you guys can hear the difference if you have headphones on. With the EQ on, you get a lot of brightness in the attack. I just felt like it helped cut through the mix a little bit. It sounds kind of weird without the rest of the arrangement going on, but it does help that kick drum cut through the mix when you boost the higher frequencies to get that sort of that snap to come out. As for this low shelf, ducking out some of my 80 hertz land, I don't know if I needed to do it quite as drastically. I guess I felt at the time it was a little bit too boomy, but now that I listen to it again, I think it's fine. Compressor, just a little bit of compression, 30%, just to help with the level. I just wanted the kick drum to cut through a little bit more, especially since I mix a lot on this mix cube thing, which doesn't really have any low frequency or really high frequency. It's kind of just in the middle. It sounds terrible, but it really helps you mix. So I'll talk more about that in a future video. Okay, so let's solo here. So that's the drums. For the bass, what did I do for the bass? I got this Waves emulator. Sounds cool. This is without. So it gives it a little bit, it kind of like gives it a little bit more width, a little bit more beefiness. So here's the Slate Digital Virtual Tape Machine on my bass, adding a little bit more warmth. Again, one of the things that happens when you plug your bass or your guitar directly into your audio interface is you get a very sort of clean digital signal, which is great, but you kind of lose that vibe that you get from analog gear. And it does a nice job of kind of mucking up the signal a little bit in a good way. It adds some warmth, some saturation. It's subtle, but you know, if you do, I don't have it on all my tracks here. I think I put it on, did I put it on the keys? Yeah, I put it on the keys as well, and I have it on my master bus. So the virtual tape machine, as I said, when you plug straight into an audio interface, like with a direct cable with a bass, you get a very clean, pure, pristine sound, which can be good, except you don't have any of that vibe that you would get if you were plugging into an amp, and then recording with the mic onto tape. So that's why I use the amp simulator. That's why I use the tape machine. It just gives it a little bit more character. It's subtle, but I think it helps. Moving on to the virtual mix rack, got the FGN EQ. Another great EQ that adds vibe to whatever you use it on. It does color the sound in a really nice way. So I just like with the kick drum, I boosted some of the higher frequencies. So this is sort of a 1.7K. I added 4 dB there. That again is bringing out the attack of the note just to help it cut through the mix, because you know, the piano covers up a lot of it, the drums cover up a lot of it. So just trying to find ways to get the actual attack, the transient of each bass note to cut through a little bit. I ducked out a little bit in the lower frequencies again, trying to make some room for the kick drum. So that's around 60 hertz, ducking out about 2.5 dB, and then I have a low or high pass filter at about 50, just to reduce some of the low rumble, which I don't think there's that much of, but just to be safe. Okay, compressor, pretty standard compression here, maybe a little bit too drastic, but the compressor does a nice job of sort of just leveling out the sound, so you have some consistency. So that's what I did here. A really nice compressor, the FG116, also from Slate. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, everything is here. Like, Slate Everything Bundle, guys. Check it out. I'll link that below, and I'll also link the Easy Drummer Jazz Kit, because it's just great products. Okay, piano. You guys know I used Keyscape on part 1, and I'm using it here as well. So, tape machine. Give it a little bit of warmth, a little bit of vibe. And here we are with the FGN again. Just a little bit more top end. A little bit less in that 400 range. It just got a little bit mucky, a little bit too thick down there, so I just tapped out about 2.5, 3 dB. And then the high pass filter, again, just trying to reduce some of that low end so that the real low instruments like the bass and the kick can get through. All right. Also, as I said, the FGN does a nice job of adding some character, and I think the piano could use some character, so that's what we have. I also added some reverb to the keys, not too much, but I used this Verb Suite Classic. I used the FG-BM7, which is a Bricasti emulator, really nice reverb. I used the chamber, this deep chamber with a 1.64 second decay time. Again, not too much here. Just, you know, the piano was dry, so I wanted to give it a little bit of a tail, so you can hear what that sounds like. Just opens the sound up a little bit, makes it feel a little bit more live, puts it in a room, and helps it blend with the other instruments. Here's what it sounds like with and without. That's with that. With that. Makes it feel more like a real instrument, in my opinion. A little bit of reverb can help virtual instruments sound like real instruments, because it puts it in a room and it makes it feel like it was played not in a computer, but rather in a room, or in this case, a chamber. All right. So now for the master bus. A few things going on here. Some EQ. I boosted the top end quite a bit. Boosted the upper mids around 5K. Gave it like 2 dB extra there. Around 13K, went about 2 dB there. I ducked out quite a bit here, 5, almost 6 dB in the 300 hertz area, which is pretty common. It's a trick that a lot of engineers or mixers are using, just because that's an area that tends to get really, really muddy, and you can add to the clarity of your mix when you duck out a little bit of that that 200 to 300, even sometimes up to 400, that area there. What is this? Low frequencies. Yeah, I just took out some of the really, really low stuff. Again, sometimes when I'm using these virtual instruments, things feel a little bit boomy in the low end, so I'm just trying to make sure that's under control. So EQ there. Then I use this this really nice master bus compressor. It's the VBC-FG Red virtual bus compressor. That's what that stands for, I think. And just a little bit of glue. Nice preset here that I started with. I don't even think I tweaked it at all. It just did a really nice job of gluing the sound together. A lot of the presets in the Slate products are really, really great, fantastic stuff. So a lot of the time you can just throw in a preset, tweak it if you need, and then you're on your way. And then finally, yep, there's the tape compressor, or not tape compressor, the tape machine. This is on the half-inch 2-track setting. Adds a little bit more warmth and saturation, just a hint, and it's subtle, but it adds up when you use all the different tape saturation plugins across the board. And finally, we have the Slate Mastering plugin. This is just a really nice way to get your levels up, make sure, we're at like 12 RMS, a little bit of punch in the low end. Yeah, it's not really complicated stuff, but it does work, and that's what matters, right? I just want it to sound good at the end of the day. And part of what I think helps so much, in addition to these great plugins and great virtual instruments, is this plugin right here is a really fantastic tool. This is something called, I think it's called Sample Magic AB. And it's a great way to reference other tracks, professionally mixed and mastered tracks, so you can compare what yours sounds like to other tracks within your DAW. So I pulled up like another jazz track here that sounds like this. You can just bounce around. So I used the reference track, I think it's Joshua Redman's Polywog, just to see how, or hear how, my track compared to it. I want it to sound somewhat similar, No, my track isn't like technically straight up jazz, but I do like the way that that record is mixed, so I wanted to compare what I have to it. I also use this gain plugin. This is just a way for me to switch on mono, because it's really helpful to mix in mono sometimes, so you don't have to focus on your panning or anything like that, or the stereo field. You just really get to listen in on the frequencies and the levels and all that. So mixing in mono is super helpful. So this last thing here is a pretty cool plugin called Match EQ, and what it does is it kind of it grabs whatever the EQ is from your reference track, and then you can apply it to your track. And I don't use this as a final EQ on what I'm mixing, but I'll use it as a way to kind of hear my track in a different way. So maybe it'll boost the highs way up, and I wouldn't have done that otherwise, so it gives me another way of listening to my track. Really, really helpful tool. But again, I leave it off once it's time to print this thing. Why don't I end with this? I'm going to play the track without any of the plugins on, and then I will turn them all back on and we'll hear how it sounds. So let's turn them all off. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to turn them all back on now. And you know what else I'm going to do is on that mastering plugin, this one right here, the what's it called? The FGX. There is this really great button here that says constant gain monitoring. And what that does is it keeps your levels consistent when you press it. So what happens with one of these mastering plugins is, or any kind of a limiter, when you boost the gain, obviously everything sounds louder, but louder kind of intuitively sounds better to our ears. So in order to eliminate that that sort of cheat, I turn the constant gain monitoring on, and you'll hear how it does not change the level, but it does affect the sound in other ways, like with the low punch and dynamic perception and things like that. But here's what I mean. I'll show you real quick. So right now it's on, and now it's off. And you hear how it gets louder? That's what I'm talking about. So we're going to keep that on. I'm going to turn all these plugins off one more time so you can hear what it sounds like, because I totally just ruined my A/B test with you guys. All right, here we go. Everything's off. Okay, let's turn it all back on. Okay, so there you go. Oh, you know what? One more thing. Before my reverb, I added this high-pass filter. I didn't need to add any of that low end of the piano in terms of the reverb, so I just cut it all out with the low cut. So that's it. I hope this wasn't too boring. I know some of you guys were interested in the mixing and the mastering, so there you go. Really big shout out to Easy Drummer and Slate Digital. Really great company, so you guys should check them out too. I'll link them below. And that's it for today. We'll do more loops in the future, more beat breakdowns, and as always, thanks for watching.